Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Movie View. We've seen some more footage from James Gunn's Superman movie, and in one particular clip from the Jimmy Kimmel Live, right? The clip seemed to spark a lot of conversation. It's controversial. And I'm talking about the scene where Superman confronts Lex Luthor. He's like kind of yelling and arguing, back and forth with Lex, kind of in a way, about Krypto, the dog, right? And my immediate reaction is this Superman being too humanized, right? Is he losing that essential reserve that we expect from the Man of Steel? So today we're going to dive into why this specific emotional portrayal doesn't quite sit right with me, and whether too humanized Superman risks losing some of what makes him Superman. We'll talk about the emotional control, the Kent's influence and what makes a hero relatable, but to a certain extent, right? So let's break down the Jimmy Kimmel Live clip, right? You see Superman burst into Lex Luthor's office, visually powerful, yeah, but then he immediately starts yelling and arguing, demanding answers about Krypto. In another clip, we see him say like, good gosh, or oh gosh, looking up at a kaiju, and that starts to feel a little off to me, and Superman, the beacon of hope, the ultimate symbol of control, is shouting about a dog and arguing with Lex Luthor like a frustrated person. Right. While I love the idea of him caring deeply for Krypto, that's a classic Superman trait, right? The manner of his emotional display feels a little less Superman-like. It's a bit whiny, and a bit unrestrained for me. This isn't the reserved, almost stoic control we've come to associate with, a being of his immense superpower, and it feels like Gunn is humanizing him too much for me. Possibly crossing a line into a territory that undermines his iconic composure, and this brings me to the core of my argument, right? The upbringing from Pa Kent, and Ma Kent, right? They weren't just, about teaching him right from wrong, right? They taught him about control. They knew he was extremely powerful in that, he doesn't have the luxury of losing his grip on his emotions. Imagine if he actually lost his temper, like a normal person. The collateral damage would be catastrophic, man. Superman's emotional discipline is a direct result of his parents instilling in him the responsibility that comes with his abilities. He's learned to compartmentalize, to be stoic when necessary, to be a rock. The idea of him yelling and being visibly upset in a way that feels so human, almost immature, contradicts the profound lessons he must have learned about managing his immense power and his emotional weight of being, a guardian of Earth. It risks making him feel less like Superman and more like just another guy who can fly. To a certain extent, now I'm all, for Superman being relatable, right? And in my my last video, we discussed how less overpowered Superman could be more relatable, but there's a certain extent to that relatability. We relate to his moral choices, his sense of justice, his empathy, his struggles with balancing two lives. We relate to the burden of his power, not necessarily the outward display of every human emotion, especially anger or frustration, in such an unreserved way. Him shouting about a dog or arguing with Lois just doesn't sit right with me. It pushes past relatability into a territory that feels more like a generic human hero, losing some of his unique, aspirational quality of Superman. He should be something we can look up to, not just someone who mirrors our everyday emotional outbursts, right? While it's only a glimpse of a longer scene, this emotional display from Superman raises questions about the balance of his humanity versus his iconic stature. Is James Gunn pushing the humanized aspect too far, though? Or is there a larger context we're missing that justifies this level of emotional rawness or rawest, I guess you would say, right? For me, I'm still inclined to believe Superman should be more reserved, more in control, a testament to his upbringing and the sheer power he wields, right? But what do you think? Is this new Superman too human, or is this exactly, what he needs? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, y'all. Subscribe for more DCU discussions, movie reviews, all type of things, man. Hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching.